Okay, this is Nick from College Golf Camps of America. Hope everybody's doing well. Today we have Miss Brandi Jackson from Brandi Jackson Golf that's joining us on the call. How are you doing today, Brandi?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
You know, I'm doing just fine. Thanks. I appreciate it. We're excited to have you, Brandi. Brandi is a former, obviously, junior golfer, college golfer, professional golfer, and she has some great insight on junior golf development and, you know, just some guidance on for parents and junior golfers looking to improve their golf game, but also, you know, provide some information on the college golf landscape. So maybe we can start by, Brandi, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I grew up here in South Carolina. I'm based out of Greenville, South Carolina, and started playing golf when I was 6, 7 years old and got competitive pretty quickly. Was a top junior here in South Carolina and went to Furman University and had a great career there. Big turning point in my golf career was finishing runner-up to U.S. Women's Am, one of my most memorable favorite weeks of my career, and that really was the turning point for knowing that I could play at the next level, and luckily qualified for the LPGA Tour on my first try coming out of college and played a full year out there in 2004. And then spent the next 8 years back and forth between the LPGA Tour and going back to the Future Tour, which is now the Symetra Tour. You know, had a lot of great success out there, and just couldn't quite cut it when I get back on the LPGA Tour. But paid some cuts and had a ton of great experiences and really great time out there. And finished up really since 2010 was my last, I guess, full season out there. And now I work with junior golfers. As Nick said, through the developmental side of their game, the swing instruction, but, you know, getting them to understand all the other steps and pieces to getting to that next level, and understanding what college golf's all about and how they can kind of navigate towards getting the opportunity to play in college.
Awesome. Awesome. So obviously you have an extensive experience in all, you know, as a junior golfer, college golfer, and then a professional, and then now you work with families. And you know, probably the best way to describe you, Brandi, is that you're more of a guidance counselor for junior golfers and parents. You know, trying to understand the college golf landscape, but you also provide some development opportunities for junior golfers through swing instruction and your own camps and whatnot. Tell us a little bit about that.
I do, yes. Now, the one thing I don't actually do is the swing instruction part. That is a lot of my players that I have come to me wanting to. They have swing instructors, or maybe they're looking for somebody to maybe help get them to the next level. I actually help match them up with ones that I know are very good junior golf instructors, and then I work with them a lot of the other pieces that a lot of them have never really tackled, which is more the on-course side of things, even, you know, the goal-setting part of, okay, well, what do they want? Well, what, you know, how are we going to lay out each week and each month from a practice standpoint? How are we going to be more effective in our practice? And really the only instructional part that I do is working with them some on their short game and getting them to understand the creativity around the greens and how to actually practice it. It's a lot of what you get from a college coach on that developmental side. It's just starting to get the junior golfers to understand that there's a lot more to it than just the fundamentals of a golf swing, and how to really think their way around a golf course and learn how to create better self-talk and better awareness of what's going on with their games, and how to go from one tournament to another and work on the things that need to be worked on, and how to, you know, kind of relay that in the sense of what their goals are for playing at the next level.
Awesome, awesome. And so it's interesting how you say that from your perspective on giving some guidance, almost like a college coach would, in terms of, so you're giving the kids opportunities to learn about college practice routines,
Yes.
you know, the ins and outs of a daily routine for a college golfer, maybe some different drills, and not so much on swing instruction, but about drills that you do maybe each day or a couple times a week.
Yes, that's really the core of sessions and programs and camps that I do with any of the players. Like I said, there's a small element of the technique side if they're working on some of the drills from a short game perspective and they're having a hard time because maybe fundamentally something's not there, but it's really just about them pulling out the competitiveness and the structure and those things to what it takes within your practice. Just, with Jordan Speed this past week at the Masters, I had a chance to do a workshop with his coach, Cameron McCormick, and talked about how he used to generate all these pressure scenarios within his practice, and that's a big part of what's helped Jordan. Was it wasn't just all this technique and all this, it's just teaching him how to compete and know that he can handle himself when it counts, and that's a lot of what I try to get the junior golfers to understand and start to be a little more accountable for themselves when they go out to practice, and give them some tools to do that, and just start, helping their management and their minds start to kind of push a little bit out of their comfort zone and push them to that next level that they have. Obviously the fundamentals have to come along with that, but a lot of them have a lot more than they probably have realized that they do. He's just trying to pull some of that out of them and get them to develop it.
Awesome. So one of the big things about junior golfers and parents, but mainly just, the junior golfers, talking about them specifically, is you talk a lot about time management. And so tell us a little bit about, what you would communicate to a junior golfer on how they manage their time between schoolwork, practice time, working out, all that type of stuff. Where would you start with junior golfers on that?
Yeah, obviously there's a big difference between the junior golfers who are old enough to drive and the ones whose parents, are still having to take them where they need to be. I tell a lot of players that's usually that dividing line, kind of the road forks when you get your own car. You either then can really, take ownership of your time and how you spend it, because you can get to the golf course when you want to. You don't have to rely on your parents dropping you off and their schedule. Or sometimes that tends to divert the other way, and you can drive down the street to go hang out with your friends instead. So a lot of times that, that change and you having your own car and the ability to drive can help or hurt. But learning to manage the things yourself as early as possible. Again, I know a lot of times the kids are on their parents' schedule and can't always do things when they want to, but just starting to plan out their week. College coaches always say, they never have players that say, I have extra time. It's always, I don't have enough time. And the sooner, the kids can start to, just to start getting an awareness of how they're spending their time every week, where is time being wasted. It's so important to balance it all. I'm big on keeping, a social life and having some fun with your friends, but also coming up and not coming up at the end of the week and realize that you've got something you want to do with your friends, but you haven't practiced yet. So the more you can lay out what you want to do every week and hold yourself accountable each day for whether or not you got the things done, and help your parents help you be accountable. Really taking ownership of that. Like I said, keeping track of it, planning it out. Knowing you want to spend so many hours at the golf course. If you can get that done, then it's amazing how much free time you have to do some things that you want to do. And that's a different plan for everybody. Everybody always asks, what's the ideal amount of time I should practice every week? And there are some kind of standards that you might say were minimum if you want to play at certain levels, but that really is, very specific to what the player wants and what their goals are for playing at the next level. How many other commitments do they have? But it really is about maximizing the time that you have and balancing the schedule and your time management.
Interesting. So you got to make those difficult choices between what your goals are and dreams, and also that your behavior on a daily basis or on a weekly basis supports those goals and those dreams.
Exactly. The word sacrifice always comes up a lot. I catch myself saying it a lot, and I'd always say, I had to sacrifice hanging out with my friends and all this to go play golf tournaments. And if you do look at it as a sacrifice, then, sometimes you really got to think about how you're identifying that word. You're giving that up, but hopefully you're giving it up for a better purpose of getting better at your game and doing something you love and something is really going to help you in the long term, and it's not so much of a sacrifice that you're not enjoying it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Coming back to that big word, which is joy, right? Keep the joy of the game out in front of you.
Exactly.
Okay, so maybe give us just a quick rundown on what you think parents, from your experience, what's the best way parents can support their junior golfer emotionally, time-wise, all that kind of stuff?
Yes, this is a great one. I just had an hour-long conversation with a parent this morning about that. And that's, I do a parent involvement talk at some of the seminars that I do, and it's always a topic of discussion. It's a very touchy subject. I don't have kids myself, which I always tell parents that, but I do know what it's like to be on both ends, and it's a big balance between being supportive and giving that push enough, because they are still kids, and there's a lot of them that don't quite have that maturity yet to really be accountable and have a lot of those. There's some kids that do, and that's great, but there's some that need that push up to a certain point. There's the dark side of the parents that are too pushy and too overbearing, and it really turns the players away from the game, and it burns them out. It's just finding that balance of pushing them enough to keep them. If they say they have, I tell the parents, I tell the kids, listen, if you say this is what your goal is, and you want to play at a higher level in college or whatever it may be, then you're kind of giving your parents and people around you the right to kind of push you a little bit, because it takes that. It takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication. So you're kind of giving them that okay to do it. But there's that level as a parent. You've got to be supportive. You've got to let the players know, when they have bad rounds, that it's okay. It is just golf at the end of the day, and they're happy to be out there watching them, and help them identify the things that maybe they didn't do well, but always make sure you identify the things that they did do well. Try to always keep it on their terms. If they don't want to talk about it, don't force them on the drive home to have to hash out their round. That's probably one of the things I hear the kids complain about the most is, when I get in the car, I just don't want to hash out, the round. Try to come to a better mutual terms. I know the parents a lot of times have the right idea for wanting to talk about it, and they're just trying to help the kids, and they know sometimes the kids don't maybe get some of the things that they did, but try to do it on the players' terms, spend some time to digest it, and then always try to put it on their terms, and just keep that communication open, and don't try to force those conversations, but I always encourage the kids and tell them, listen, sometimes the parents are just trying to help them get better and identify the things that they see. I know for myself, if I watch a player and ask them the things that they feel like they did wrong, it's not always the things that I know they did wrong. Somebody who's had 25 years of experience of it, I'm going to see things a little different than somebody who's 13, 14, 15 years old. So being able to listen and know those things. But the parents always just have to be, the ones that support and let the kids know that, it's okay to have bad days, and not make them feel like they're going to get yelled at because of that.
Yeah. It's interesting to listen to college coaches and even some junior golf instructors talk about how much they watch that interaction between junior golfers and parents, because the junior golfer, hey, Mom, I said red Gatorade, not, purple Gatorade, or, hey, grab my bag, I'll meet you on the driving range, or vice versa, right? Because a lot of these college coaches have said, like, hey, that's going to be me in a year or two, and so how they treat their parents and how their parents treat them is an important piece of that whole kind of college golf relationship.
Most definitely. I've done several surveys with the coaches and interviews, and I always ask this of the coaches, how much does both sides, does the parent influence on how you see the parents treating the kids, and vice versa, the kids treating the parents? And I don't think I've ever come across a coach that says, well, don't look at that, or that doesn't matter. That tells them a lot about both sides of the story. It tells them whether or not, once if they recruit that player, is that parent going to be a headache to them? Is that parent going to be trying to tell them how to coach? Is that parent going to be getting in the way of their coaching and trying to making the kid feel bad for what they're doing? And they're also looking at it from the really, really harp on this with the kids is they're looking at it, how do the kids treat their parents? And in a couple of different scenarios, are they, kind of being, I hate to use the word brats, but, kind of being that way when their parents are just trying to help them and give them food, or are they expecting the parents, like you said, to carry the clubs and do things like that? Are they just being mean and hateful? Those little things are things that the coaches look for. They're looking for the big picture, not just the golf game. They look to see how the kids handle bad holes and bad rounds. Do they get attitudes? Do they treat the other players bad? Do they treat their parents bad? So many of those little signs that coaches are looking for, because those are all going to be things that in a 4-year time span are really going to affect the dynamics of the golf team, the relationship between the parents, the kids, the coaches, all of that.
Sure. Well, that's good advice and good feedback. Hopefully the parents and junior golfers continue to hear that message. So, well, maybe if you can answer a couple other questions for us, and then we'll let you go. I appreciate your time. And by the way, it's BrandiJacksonGolf.com. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. Brandi with an I.
Jackson. Brandi with an I, Jackson.com, or BrandiJacksonGolf.com, excuse me.
Both of them, yeah, both of them will get you there.
Yeah, perfect. Well, maybe describe the current landscape of college golf, and maybe give us an example of maybe one or two of how it's changed since you played college golf? And then also maybe what are some of the pitfalls that you find a lot of junior golfers falling into on maybe their expectations of college golf or maybe their perceptions of college golf, and maybe you can just do that for us.
Yes. How college golf itself hasn't changed tremendously since I came through. I mean, a lot of the layout of it and all that's still the same. I would say the facilities in a lot of cases have gotten bigger and better. You know, some of the swag that the players get, some of those little things have probably gotten a little bit better, but the day in and day out of the grind and the tournaments, it's all pretty similar. It's gotten much more competitive. One of the, and I would say a little bit of a pitfall from a scholarship standpoint is the belief that there's still tons of scholarships out there for the girls, when it's really not the case. There are scholarships that go unused, but a lot of times it's smaller schools that are maybe out in the country that players may not want to go to. It is extremely competitive with the girls side of things, and it's always been competitive with the boys. There's a lot of times a misconception of scholarship and just how much is available. Boys, it's much more limited just because they don't have as many as the girls do, and it's much more competitive. So the teams are usually bigger. It's just a lot thinner from a scholarship standpoint. But as far as the landscape of college golf goes, the thing that I see really hurt a lot of players as well is it's all about playing Division I to a lot of players. Which I get that. It is it's a great thing to do. It's a great accomplishment. But I've had several players or just stories that I know of players that have gone to Division I schools because it was Division I and come to find out, the coaching isn't very good. They're finishing last place in every tournament. It's just not very structured. It's not very, it's not really pushing them to be better players. They're probably traveling every week, and then I look at some of these top Division II or top Division III programs that are just having great experience. These girls are good. I mean, they're competing. They're vying for spots on the team. They're winning national championships, and trying to get players to understand which they would rather have. Especially if you're a really competitive junior golfer, and maybe you weren't quite good enough for a mid to top Division I, or you're maybe a little bit of a late bloomer. It's making sure you really look at all the options that are out there and don't get too stuck on the Division I. Rollins is a great women's Division II team, and they go play several Division I tournaments every year and actually compete and beat a lot of the Division I teams. And they're down in Florida, got a great setup down there. So just being able to really consider all those and don't get too stuck on the Division I title to it, because the experience may not always be what you want it to be. And, just the day in and the day out of different college levels and different experiences is really what it comes down to. Just how much do you want to put into your golf when you're there, really be pushed? Do you want to have a little more of a social life? Because, at all levels it's going to be a grind, but it's certainly more of a grind at the top levels within each division than it may be at the lower levels. And really just asking the right questions and trying to see the right things that you want as a player. It doesn't mean one's right or wrong. It's just really about what you want out of your college experience.
Sure. Well, that's interesting. Well, that's great feedback because, for some reason everybody always thinks it's Division I or bust, and unfortunately that's just that's a misnomer or misled people, and I got to play Division I or else I'm not very good, and that's just not the case, as you know. And there's some great organizations, or universities that have you look at like Lynn University, who just won their conference championship, and on the men's side, and they're ranked really high. They could compete with probably 80% of the Division I schools, and you look at maybe like University of South Carolina, Aiken, they could compete with 70-80% of the Division I schools day in, day out. So it's finding the right fit, right? I mean, finding the right fit with coaches and the university, with academics, and all that kind of stuff. Well, we'll wrap things up here, but maybe Brandi, share with us a moment or maybe a thought that you received, or some guidance that you received as a player that you really felt helped you the most when you were a junior golfer. So what's the best advice you ever got when you were a junior golfer?
As a junior golfer, and this actually probably came when probably one of the best pieces of advice I got was actually when I first got on tour, and Kay Cockrell, my very first event out there, her words were, "Go with what got you here," and that's a little bit at that level, but it's really learning to, and I think good college coaches, the best college coaches are great at knowing that every golfer is different, they learn different, they need to be taught different, and I think as a player is just kind of always being coachable. That's a big part of it is, I know there's a wealth of knowledge and information that can come at you, but finding the people you trust and really being coachable and really wanting to learn and develop and get better, not being too stubborn to how you are, but yet knowing knowing who you are, knowing who you are as a player and a person, but always being willing to push yourself a little bit more past where you're at, and letting somebody that you trust that's willing to do that and trying to get you, and not being so stubborn in your own ways, and not willing to try things, and know that people who have been there and done that probably do know a little bit more than you. I think that's what happens with a lot of kids, is they kind of get very stuck in their own ways, and they aren't willing to learn and develop. But like I said, when she said that, it kind of resonated, because when I got out there, I got so wrapped up in everybody's got their swing coach and their video and all this stuff, and you do really kind of have to go with what fits you, but finding that trust of people that can help get you within you and who you are to where you want to be, really kind of specific to who you are and how you learn, and what drives you to be better.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great feedback, Brandi. I appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today. So check out what junior golf development programs that Brandi offers on her website, which is brandijacksongolf.com. And Brandi will probably be spending some time with us this summer at some of our camps on presenting to parents and players, or parents and campers, I should say, on some of these very topics that we're talking about. So Brandi, appreciate your time. And is there anything else you want to share?
I think that's it. I think you asked some great questions, and hopefully parents and kids that are listening got some insight. And if anybody ever has any questions, you can email me through my website. I'm more than happy to help answer any questions or give any more feedback.
Awesome, Brandi. Well, hey, have a great day. Appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds great. Thank you.